Look, I've been playing Grand Theft Auto games for over 2 decades now. I've played all kinds of criminals, guys who love money, psychos out for revenge, dudes who want to run everything. But Niko Bellic from GTA 4, he's different. Not flashy like other game characters. Niko got under my skin because he felt real, his pain was real, how he thought was real, and he was like someone you might actually meet. Most people don't really talk about Niko much. They'll go on about Tommy Vercetti taking over, CJ and his gang stuff, even Trevor being insane. But Niko, he gets forgotten. And he screwed with my head more than any other video game character. Niko gets off that boat in Liberty City, and you can tell something's wrong. Other GTA guys are making jokes or planning big moves, but Niko just looks tired. Beat down, like he's carrying something heavy. I remember this early scene where he's sitting with Roman, and he opens up to him about the worst thing I've ever heard in a video game. Niko says, "I've killed men. I've done things you can't even imagine. I'm not a good man. When the war came, I was a boy. I saw things. I can't talk about it." You don't worry about your soul after you've seen what they did to those children? It's a village. They cut the throats of 50 children. The hands, they cut off their hands. Dude's not making up video game dialogue. He's talking about real pain. He's telling Roman about the exact moment he stopped being a normal person. And the scary part is how he says it. Like he's talking about the weather. When really bad stuff happens to you, sometimes the worst stories become the easiest ones to tell. So after years of violence in Europe, Niko gets these emails from Roman painting this picture of the American dream. Sports cars, fancy apartments, beautiful women, endless opportunities. For a guy who's been drowning in war stuff for years, this probably sounded like heaven. "What's mine is yours, cousin," Roman says when Niko arrives. And then everything falls apart. A fancy apartment? It's full of cockroaches. The sports car? It's a broken taxi. A successful business? Roman's cab company is broke and he owes money to scary people. Every single thing Roman promised was a lie. But look at Niko's reaction carefully. He's not just disappointed or mad. It's like the last tiny bit of hope he had just died. He tells Roman, "There's no such thing as a new beginning, Roman. With every day we live, we pick up new baggage that we must carry with us for the rest of our lives." That line really got to me because it shows how trauma works. Niko came to America to run away from something old, not to build something new. And he's already figuring out that you can't run from your own brain. If you're getting into Niko's story, stick around because I'm just getting started. Okay, so GTA 4 does something weird here. I didn't really get it until I played through the game a few times. Every other Grand Theft Auto guy enjoys the violence at least a little bit. Tommy Vercetti loves building his empire. CJ wants to protect his family. Even Michael, with all his problems, gets excited about the big heist. But Niko? Look at his face during the cutscenes. He's never happy, never excited, never proud. He looks tired. Like a guy doing a job he hates but can't quit. Look at when he kills Vlad. Other GTA games would make this awesome. The main character standing up to a bully, taking charge, showing who's boss. But when Niko kills Vlad, nobody's celebrating. Roman is scared, Niko looks grim, and you can already feel that bad stuff is coming. And then Niko says something that really messed me up. "What am I good at, Roman? What is my trade? I deal in death because that is all that is open to me." He didn't say I'm good at killing or I like violence. He said I deal in death because that is all that is open to me. Dude sees himself as stuck doing the one thing he hates most about himself. Niko's character is so good because it shows real trauma stuff. There's this doctor, Judith Herman, who studies trauma and recovery. She talks about people who've been through really bad stuff for a long time. She calls it complex PTSD, and it screws with who they think they are. Niko has all the signs. He can't figure out who he really is. Listen to how he talks about himself. "I'm not a good man, Roman. The things I've done." Dude's not just being dramatic. Herman says trauma survivors often can't figure out who they are anymore. Also, Niko acts like he's always expecting something bad to happen. Look at how he sits and stands during cutscenes. He's never relaxed, always ready to fight or run. That's real trauma behavior. But even with all his problems, you see little pieces of the good guy he used to be before the war screwed him up. There's this random thing that happens with a drug-addicted prostitute named Marnie. She comes up to Niko in a park, desperate for money to buy drugs. And you know what he does? He helps her. She's broke and can't do anything for him. But he helps her because somewhere deep down, buried under all that trauma and violence, there's still a piece of the good man he used to be. And it works. Next time you see Marnie, she's clean. She's going home to her family. She's going to college to become a psychiatrist. She wants to help other people like Niko helped her. But what really got to me, Niko doesn't act like he did anything special. He doesn't feel good about it. He just wishes her luck and walks away, like he can't believe he could do something good. Then there's Dwayne, an old gangster who just got out of prison and the world moved on without him. He's depressed, wants to kill himself, completely lost. And Niko sees himself in Dwayne, another guy destroyed by stuff he couldn't control. Niko talks to Dwayne differently than everyone else. You can hear real care in his voice, real understanding. When Dwayne talks about wanting to end it all, Niko doesn't make jokes or tell him to get over it. He listens, he gets it. Through all of this, there's one thing keeping Niko going. One thing he's been obsessed with for over 10 years. He's hunting the guy who betrayed his unit during the war. 12 lives were lost. Only 3 came back: Niko, Florian Kravik, and Darko Breivik. Niko knows he wasn't the traitor, so it had to be one of the other 2. This isn't just about getting revenge. Niko needs someone to blame for why his life got destroyed. He's been carrying guilt about surviving when his friends didn't for over 10 years, and he needs it to be someone's fault. When he finally finds Florian, who's now living as Bernie Crane in Liberty City, the confrontation is explosive. Niko kicks down the door, gun out, ready for violence. This is the moment he's been building up to for years. But then Florian tells him the truth. He thought it was Niko or Darko who was the traitor. He's been carrying the same suspicion, the same pain, the same need for answers. All that anger just dies. All that fury, all that purpose, it just disappears. If it wasn't Florian, then it was Darko. And there's still one more ghost to hunt. The confrontation with Darko is one of the most heartbreaking scenes I've ever seen in gaming. When Darko literally gets dumped out of a van like trash, you notice how pathetic he looks. Dude's not some evil mastermind or powerful enemy pulling strings behind the scenes. He's a broken junkie, skinny, can barely stand up. The guy who destroyed Niko's life, who caused over 10 years of pain and violence, who turned Niko into a killer. He's nothing. He's less than nothing. "You killed my friends, you son of a bitch," Niko asks. "For 1,000 American dollars. Darko says, 1,000? You killed my friends for $1,000? $1,000. Niko's entire life of trauma was worth $1,000. 12 lives were worth $1,000. But the crazy part about this scene is that Darko doesn't beg for forgiveness. He turns it back on Niko. "How much do you charge to kill someone?" "Kill me then, you fucking hypocrite." And boom. Niko realizes he's become exactly the same thing he's been hunting. A guy who kills for money. If you spare Darko, and I think this is the right choice, Niko has this moment of devastating clarity. "I realized nothing would change if I killed him. Revenge would not shut the book on what I have seen. Only those who die get closure. The living doesn't." Niko's story feels so real because it matches up with actual psychology research. There's this doctor, James Gilligan, who studies why people become violent. Gilligan says that when people see too much violence, it literally changes how their brain works. Niko shows what Gilligan calls moral injury, when someone gets screwed up psychologically because they had to do things against their values just to survive. Niko's constant fighting with himself about his violent actions shows this perfectly. Psychopaths like killing, Niko's a good person who had to do bad things to stay alive. Gilligan calls these soul wounds, damage that goes deeper than normal trauma, right to the core of who someone is. Niko's character is cool, because his violence never feels random or crazy. Every time he hurts someone, it's because he thinks he has to, and he hates himself for it. Niko's story gets even more complicated when you think about the culture stuff. There's this researcher, Richard Nisbett, who studies cultures of honor, places where your reputation and loyalty are everything, life and death stuff. Niko comes from exactly that kind of place. His obsession with finding his unit's betrayer isn't just revenge. It's about what Nisbett calls honor restoration. But he's caught between his old culture and American culture. American culture says move on and let it go. But his background says he needs justice and he can't forget. This culture clash adds another layer of stress to his immigrant experience. Nisbett's research shows that honor culture thinking doesn't just disappear when people move somewhere else. The brain patterns stick around even when the social situation changes. So Niko can't just get over the betrayal. Niko's quest for redemption connects to deep philosophical stuff. There's this philosopher, Søren Kierkegaard, who had this concept called the leap of faith that fits Niko's journey perfectly. Kierkegaard said that real redemption requires what he called the courage to be, accepting responsibility for what you've done, while still believing you can change. Throughout the game, Niko struggles with what Kierkegaard would call the anxiety of existence, the overwhelming responsibility of making choices in a morally confusing world. The Darko confrontation is Kierkegaard's leap of faith moment. When Niko chooses to spare Darko, he's showing mercy and making what Kierkegaard calls the leap beyond reason into a new way of being. The game's final act forces Niko to make one last impossible choice: work with Dmitri for a massive payday, or refuse the deal and go after him directly. Roman pushes Niko to take the deal. Kate begs him not to compromise his principles. For a brief moment, it seems like maybe Niko might get a happy ending. But then the game delivers its final, crushing blow. No matter which choice you make, someone dies at Roman's wedding. If you take the deal, Roman gets killed. If you choose revenge, Kate gets killed. And in both cases, Niko's reaction is the same. Complete, total devastation. Roman was his connection to family. Kate was his hope for redemption. The game ends with Niko standing by the Statue of Happiness, having gained nothing. He came to America looking for freedom, looking for a fresh start. Instead, he found more of the same violence and loss. When I play GTA 4 now, Niko feels more important than ever. With all the wars and people being displaced around the world, his immigrant trauma story hits hard. With people talking more about mental health, his realistic portrayal of complex PTSD gives representation to people who rarely see themselves in games. Niko shows what healthy masculinity looks like when it's broken. He's strong enough to be vulnerable, honest about his pain, and willing to help others even when he can't help himself. We live in a world that often rewards the loudest voices and the most dramatic gestures. But Niko reminds us that quiet suffering and moral complexity are more interesting than flashy violence. Niko Bellic isn't flashy. He won't be on magazine covers or get his own spin-off. He's just a really well-written, really well-acted character who shows us something we don't see enough of in games: a genuinely broken person trying to be better. Niko got my respect the same way real people do: small actions repeated over time, being there when it mattered, proving that trying to be good matters more than actually succeeding. He's the protagonist I didn't know I was looking for, and now he's the standard I judge all video game characters by. If you've got someone in your life who's fighting their own demons while still trying to help others, hold on to them. They're rarer than you think. If Niko's story gets to you the same way it got to me, hit like and subscribe, because we need more discussions about characters who show the real cost of violence and the genuine struggle for redemption. Niko Bellic isn't just the most broken GTA character. He shows us what video game storytelling can do when it's willing to be honest about what it means to be human.